Hi, my name is Yuri. Today I'll put on my best shirt and we will tackle one of the biggest mysteries in our planet. Believe me, I'm a master of solving big mysteries. So, let's get started.
In the distant year of 1779, when America was just beginning to build its independence, an incident occurred that remains a mystery to this day. Thomas Lynch Jr., a 26-year-old representative from South Carolina and one of the 65 brave singers of the Declaration of Independence, embarked on a journey that would be his last. Together with his wife Elizabeth, he decided to travel to West Indies, hoping to improve his health, which had been weakened by the harsh conditions of the Revolutionary War. They set sail on December 15 in 1779 from the coast of South Carolina on a small vessel, but the ship vanished without a trace somewhere in the area of the Bermuda Triangle. No wreckage, no distress signals, nothing. The last sighting of them was on December 20 in 1779, off the coast of Georgia, and then silence. Officially, Lynch was declared dead in 1781, but his body was never found.
Oh, darn it.
In the spring of 1880, during the height of the Victorian era, the British Navy suffered a heavy loss. The 26-gun frigate HMS Atlanta left the Bermuda Islands on January 31. There were 150 young cadets on board, trading for service in the Royal Navy. The ship was commanded by Captain Francis Sterling, an experienced sailor with 30 years of service. The last sighting of Atlanta was on February 10, about 300 miles northeast of Bermuda, as it crossed the boundaries of the triangle. After that, nothing. Search party launched on March yield no results, no wreckage, no bodies, not even a lifeboat.
How did they even sail on those wooden ships back then?
Interestingly, Atlanta had been converted from a merchant vessel into a training frigate in 1878, raising questions about its stability. Its sister ship Yuri sank 2 years earlier, on March 24 in 1878, off the Isle of Wight due to a sudden snowstorm, claiming the lives of 317 people. This led many to speculate that Atlanta might have suffered the same fate, either a storm or structural flaws. The crew of 281 perished when this 26-gun British frigate vanished without a trace after departing the Bermuda Islands for Plymouth, England, in 1880. Could Atlanta have sunk due to human error or a design flaw? Or was it a storm that no one had time to report? Or perhaps the disappearance was tied to the curse of the triangle, as if it simply swallows ships. Some even spoke of spirits seeking revenge for colonial expeditions. But this catastrophe was not the last, and the mystery of the triangle was only gaining momentum.
Well, that's not a secret, but go on.
On March 4th in 1980, the US Navy was shaken by one of its largest peacetime tragedies. The massive coal transport Cyclops departed Barbados for Norfolk with 309 people on board, crew and passengers, including diplomats. The ship was carrying 10,800 tons of manganese ore, critically important for the military needs of World War I. The last radio signal was received on March 4th at 15:30, when the vessel was 250 miles northeast of Barbados, right in the heart of the Bermuda Triangle. After that, silence. Search operators in March and April found no wreckage, no bodies, not even oil slicks. This remains the largest loss of US Navy personnel in peacetime.
That's some crazy stuff.
Joshua Slocum, a Canadian sailor with 40 years of experience, entered history as the first person to complete a solo circumnavigation aboard his 11-meter sloop Spray. His book, Sailing Alone Around the World, became a bestseller. In 909, at the age of 65, Slocum set out from New Bedford to the Caribbean, and then planned to reach Venezuela to sell the Spray. On November 14, he departed from Miami, heading south. The last sighting of him was on November 15 off Andros Islands in the Bahamas on the edge of the Bermuda Triangle. The vessel vanished, and no wreckage or body was ever found. In 1924, 15 years later, he was officially declared dead.
A good sailor is never forgotten, no matter that struck him down. A musket ball or simply drowning.
In the late 1940s, as the world was recovering from World War II, the Bermuda Triangle added 2 more dark chapters to its book of mysteries. On January 30, in 1948, the Avro Tudor 4th Star Tiger of British South American Airways took off from Santa Maria in the Azores, heading for Bermuda. On board were 29 people, 6 crew members and 23 passengers, including the well-known British businessman Arthur Cunningham. The plane was at the altitude of 20,000 feet, weather conditions deteriorating, but the pilot, Captain Brian Macmillan, was experienced. He had already completed transatlantic flights. The last message came at 3:15 a.m. on January 30, expecting to arrive at Bermuda in 1 hour. After that, nothing. No distress signals, no wreckage. Search operation involving 25 U.S. Navy planes and ships sourced 200,000 square miles, all in vain. Exactly 1 year later, on January 17, the story repeated with eerie precision. Another BSSA Avro Tudor 4th, the Star Ariel, took off from the Bermuda Island bound for Kingston, Jamaica. There were 20 people on board, 7 crew members and 13 passengers. The pilot, Captain John Kalpman, reported at 4 o'clock a.m. "Weather clear, all is well." Those were the last words of his. The plane vanished, leaving no trace. The search lasted a week, but again yielded no results. Interestingly, in 1998, wreckage of another plane, the Stardust, which had disappeared in 1947, was found in the Andes, but the Tiger and Ariel remain a mystery. Why did 2 planes from the same company disappear a year apart? Theories include engine malfunctions of the Tudor 4th. They were new and not fully tested. Human error, or pilot mistakes, and the mysticism of the triangle. Some suggest that strong winds or turbulence could have thrown the planes off course, while the lack of radio signals is explained by the imperfect technology of that time.
It seems this topic does not promise positive stories, but go on.
On February 4th in 1963, the tanker SS Marine Sulphur Queen departed from Texas heading to Virginia. On board were 39 people and 15,000 tons of modern sulfur, carried in specialized tanks. The ship, built in 1944, had been converted from an oil tanker to a sulfur carrier in 1960, raising concerns about its safety. The last radio message came on February 4th at 13:30, all is well, following the route. The message was so routine that no one suspected trouble. However, on February 6th, the tanker was declared missing after failing to arrive in Norfolk. A search by the U.S. Coast Guard covered 300,000 square miles in the Bermuda Triangle area. They found only a few pieces of debris, a lifeboat, and the smell of sulfur in the air. All 39 crew members vanished forever. In 1976, a similar sulfur-carrying ship sat east of Bermuda, raising new questions about the safety of such cargo. What happened to the Queen? An explosion of sulfur due to a leak? A fire? Or a storm that broke the tanker apart? Mystics suggest the Triangle claimed the ship, leaving only the smell of sulfur behind. Some theories point out to methane eruptions that could have instantly robbed the ship of buoyancy. Or could it have been some giant underwater creature, like the Kraken, about which sailors of the past told so many tales? After all, people don't just make up such stories. The question remains. And now for the story of the famous Flight 19.
Okay, go on.
On December 5th, in 1945, just 4 months after the end of World War II, the naval base at Fort Lauderdale, Florida, was preparing for a routine training exercise. At 14:10 local time, 5 TBM Avenger torpedo bombers, known as Flight 19, took off from Naval Air Station Fort Lauderdale. There were 14 men on board, experienced pilots and trainees. The group was led by Lieutenant Charles Carl Taylor, a 28-year-old veteran with 2,500 flight hours, including combat missions in the Pacific Theater. The mission was straightforward: fly east from the Florida coast, conduct practice bombing runs over the Hens and Chickens Shoal Reef, turn north over Grand Bahama Island, and then return to base, completing a triangular route.
Indeed, let's just fly over the Bermuda Triangle. What could possibly go wrong?
The weather was moderate, sunny, with light rain and wind, and the sea was calm to slightly choppy. Everything went according to plan until 1540, when Taylor unexpectedly radioed, "I can't figure out where we are. It seems we've gone off course." His compasses had failed, and he mistakenly believed he was over the Florida Keys, though in reality, Flight 19 was east of the Bahamas. Radio communication deteriorated, but at 4 o'clock, Taylor said, "We must be over the Gulf of Mexico." But in fact, the planes had drifted even further into the Atlantic. That's when one of the trainees suggested, if we just flew west, we'd get home. But Taylor, adhering to discipline, continued leading the squadron northeast, further away from land. By 1750, ground radio stations determined that Flight 19 was located 200 nautical miles east of Florida. Taylor transmitted, "We'll fly west, 270 degrees, until we see land or run out of fuel." That was the last message. By 8 o'clock, when the fuel would have run out, the planes likely crashed into the ocean. At 1927, the same day, a rescue plane with 13 crew members on board took off from Naval Air Station Banana River. 20 minutes after takeoff, it sent a routine message, but then disappeared from radar. At 9:45, a merchant ship reported a flash of fire in the sky in the area where the mariner vanished, and later discovered an oil slick. Not a single piece of debris, not a single body from either Flight 19 or the rescue plane was found. Despite an extensive search covering 250,000 square miles of the Atlantic and the Gulf of Mexico. But what could have happened? In a world where science tries to explain everything, a variety of theories swirl around the disappearance of Flight 19. Some speak of a magnetic anomaly hidden at the heart of the Bermuda Triangle. There's a theory that here, true north merges with magnetic north, creating a zone where compasses go haywire and space-time warps, whisking planes into the unknown. Other, bolder minds are convinced that the area hosts an alien base. They see the flash of fire reported by witnesses as evidence of an alien abduction, where the pilots of Flight 19 encountered a UFO. Some speak of a portal to a parallel dimension, that the triangle is a gateway to another world where time flows differently. And Flight 19 simply crossed that boundary, leaving us with this mystery forever. Another version suggests a time loop, a vortex that displaced the planes in time. Recall Bruce Gernon's story from the 1970s, when he flew through a foggy tunnel and found himself in another era. And what if ancient Atlantis hidden on the ocean floor really exists? An underwater base using forgotten technologies to drag Flight 19 into its depth, guarding its secrets. These theories have inspired Hollywood. In Spielberg's Close Encounters of the Third Kind, the planes are found in a desert with full fuel tanks, returned by aliens. The film Bermuda Triangle terrifies with ghosts and anomalies, while the film Triangle bans the fact with fiction, exploring UFOs and magnetic oddities. But one of the most logical theories about the Bermuda Triangle is the idea of methane eruptions, which could have been an invisible killer of ships and planes.
Let's go into more detail from this point.
It all began with research by geologists in the 1980s, when scientists discovered vast deposits of methane hydrates, frozen methane crystals trapped in the seabed at depth of 300 to 1,000 meters. These hydrates remain stable under high pressure and low temperatures, but if they start to break down due to tectonic shifts, earthquakes, or changes in water temperature, the methane is released in the form of giant bubbles. According to a hypothesis, first proposed by German scientist Wolfgang Schubel in 1981, such eruptions could have occurred in the Triangle area, particularly near the Bahamas, where the seafloor is rich in methane. When methane bubbles rise to the surface, they reduce the water's density, creating a zero buoyancy zone. A ship entering such an area would instantly lose stability and sink, as if something had pulled it underwater. Experiments in Norway during the 1990s showed that even a small methane release could sink a model ship in mere seconds. And for planes, methane rising into the air could cause turbulence or even ignite upon contact with a spark, which might explain the disappearance of Flight 19 or the flash observed during the vanishing of the rescue mariner in 1945. But what could have happened? Flight 19 in 1945 became a symbol of the Bermuda Triangle's mysteries, but the US Navy's investigation revealed a more mundane cause, a navigational error by Charles Taylor, who lost his way due to malfunctioning compasses in a storm with waves up to 15 meters. The rescue mariner, which disappeared the same day, likely exploded due to a fuel leak, with its debris carried away by the Gulf Stream.
As one wise man said, everything made by man is as unreliable as man himself.
Curious, but let's move on. The theory of methane eruptions seems plausible. Scientists, starting in 1981, suggested that methane bubbles raising from the seabed could reduce water density, depriving ships of buoyancy. Experiments in 1990s confirmed it. A ship could sink in seconds. For planes, methane could have caused turbulence or a fire, as in the case of Mariner. But research in 2025, including data from Simon Boxall, clarifies there's no evidence of widespread methane eruptions in the Triangle.
But still, methane is very dangerous gas. Once I overeat borscht, realized some methane on the street, and 2 trees away from me a badger died. Take care of nature, friends.
Returning to the other cases, we see that the causes could vary. Thomas Lynch Jr. in 1779 was likely a victim of a winter storm and rogue waves reaching 20-30 meters. The Cyclops in 1918, with 309 people on board, might have been capsized by a March hurricane, with its heavy load of manganese ore hastening the sinking. Joshua Slocum in 1909, an experienced sailor, probably encountered a sudden wave, common for that time of year, on a small spray, vulnerable to anomalous weather. The Star Tiger and Star Ariel were caught in turbulence due to January storms, and their Tudor planes were unreliable, as BSAA later discovered. The frigate Atlanta in 1880, with 281 people, sank due to weak construction. And once again, February storms, just like its sister Eurydice in 1878. And the Marine Sulphur Queen in 1963, carrying 50,000 tons of molten sulfur, might have caught fire due to a leak, with a storm sealing the tragedy that claimed 39 lives. Each case tells its own story, but modern science says that there's no single anomaly. Storms, rogue waves, human errors, technical failures, and currents like the Gulf Stream explain more. Research from the World Wildfire Fund confirms the Triangle isn't among the top 10 most dangerous zones for shipping. Disappearances here are no more frequent than elsewhere. Let's look beyond the Triangle.
Alright, let's take a look.
In 1956, the liner Andre Doria sank off the coast of Massachusetts after a collision, claiming 46 lives. In 1987, the ferry Donia Path collided with a tanker in the Tabla Strait, killing 4,375 people, the deadliest peacetime maritime disaster. In 2004, a storm in the Sea of Japan, near Hokkaido, swept away the fishing vessel Amur, and 52 fishermen vanished without a trace. Such tragedies occur worldwide, from Australia to the North Sea, where storms and currents are no less treacherous. So why has the Bermuda Triangle become a legend? It's a quirk of the human mind to see the supernatural where there is none. We connect random events, attributing them to the curse of the triangle, when in reality it's just nature and human error. Myths about aliens, Atlantis, and time loops fuel our imagination.
But I like alien version better. Too bad they don't exist.
Yuri, our minds love mysteries, but science sooner or later reveals the truth. Perhaps we just want to believe in miracles that aren't there.